I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means.
Breaking news, as of this morning, Tuesday, October 1st, 45,000 union port workers have gone on strike for the first time since 1977. Now, that's impacted 36 different ports, all the way from Maine all the way down to Houston, Texas. Now, these workers only wanted a $5 an hour wage increase every year for 6 years and a total ban on automation. They didn't get that. As a result of the failed negotiations, this strike is going to impact millions and millions of workers, potentially costing $5 billion per day. You guys, when we divide 45,000 employees into $5 billion, that would give them a wage increase of over $110,000 a year. So I'm sitting back and I'm asking myself, what the heck is going on? Now, what Mitch Wexler and I are going to do today is really try to pinpoint and hone in on what the actual problem really is. We're going to start the first segment telling you guys exactly what they want. We'll talk about the CEO bonuses. We'll talk about the overwhelming amount of taxes for these ports. Now, our second segment, we're going to go into the localized ripple effects by looking at only the Port of Houston. And I'm going to show you guys that 1.5 million jobs are actually fed through the Port of Houston. And I'm also going to show you guys how much taxes are being charged only to the Port of Houston. You guys are going to be blown away because it far exceeds the actual labor costs. We're going to end this out by talking about the broad economic effects. And then we're going to ask the question, is this the Black Swan that is going to crash the world economy? Now, before we begin, happy Tuesday, Mitch. Good morning, sir. And how are you?
Good morning. It's been a long haul. We've been at this since about 2 o'clock this morning, and I spent a lot of time breaking down using the Mulholland-Obis formula and the infection rate spreadsheet, only to realize this is much deeper than even those systems are capable of handling. And what Travis was just referring to, that ripple effect, is actually exponential growth of a problem. And that's what you're about to see here, is how far wide this actually can go. And this is not just a US problem. This is a global problem created in the US. So we're going to do the best we can to explain that.
Absolutely. And we're going to start with the first segment, explaining to you guys exactly what they want. And understand, as we're making this video, the president of the union is absolutely going to wreck the establishment. This article here from AP News, this came out this morning, October 1st. Dock workers at ports from Maine to Texas go on strike, a standoff risking new shortages. Dock workers at ports from Maine to Texas began walking picket lines early Tuesday in a strike over wages and automation that could reignite inflation and cause shortages of goods if it goes on more than a few weeks. And the reality is, if it goes on more than a few days, Mitch will get into that here in a minute. Second paragraph, the contract between the ports and about 45,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association expired at midnight last night, Monday, the 30th of September. And even though progress was reported in talks on Monday, the workers went on strike. The strike affected 36 ports for the first time by the union since 1977. The union's opening offer in talks was for a 77% pay raise over the 6-year life of the contract. The president saying it's necessary to make up for the inflation and years of small raises. ILA members make a base salary of about $81,000 per year, but some can pull in over $200,000 annually with large amounts of overtime. But Monday evening, the alliance said it had increased its offer to 50% raises over 6 years, and it pledged to keep limits on automation in place of the old contracts. The negotiation failed. They wanted to give them 50%. They're demanding 77%. Now what I want to do is let's listen to about 2 minutes of the actual president and see what he has to say.
We always went for a 3-year contract. When my father, when I was a young kid, we went on strike for 25 cents. 25 cents. We went on strike in 1977 for 3 months for 80 cents. Fast forward, back then the companies were lucky they made millions of dollars, to 10 million, 5 million. Today, They make billions and billions of dollars. They make, MSC is the richest shipping company in the world, made 3 times the money than Amazon. A lot of money, right? Billions. Well, one of the companies, and I won't mention his name, he took himself a Christmas bonus, $4 billion. He took it out for him and his family, $4 billion. A French company, I won't mention their name, they gave all their employees 50 months salary as a Christmas gift. Now, look at that money. They have so much money, they don't even know what to do with it. They know they're building up terminals. They want to go automation. They want more money now. Get rid of these men. We don't need them no more. It's a big change going on. I've been fighting automation for years. They destroyed LA. They put a fully automated terminal out there at Merce Line. 800 longshoremen lost their jobs. If it was up to them, they would like to see everybody lose their jobs. Let me tell you, it's not just in the longshore. They got ships in Europe that they're building. They got one now, runs on a battery, container ship, no crew. Somebody in an office building runs it, goes out, goes in. They don't want anybody. They don't want to pay anybody.
Before I refer back to you, Mitch, and I get your opinion, I want to show the viewers this real quick. Just looking at the Houston Ship Channel, okay? The Houston Ship Channel alone contributes $10.6 billion in state and local tax revenue. If the state of Texas, or rather Houston, cut these taxes in half, okay, just cut those taxes in half, they would be able to give these people $110,000 annual raise. So just wanted to show you guys that real quick, because my question to Mitch is of the things that were just mentioned, you know, these strikes impacting millions of people, these massive CEO bonuses, a $4 billion CEO bonus. Meanwhile, this is happening. Overwhelming property taxes, overwhelming taxes. I mean, which of these things, Mitch, the automation, which of these things is the most unreasonable?
The problem is that they're all correlated, and you've got such a bad situation here in that if you have goods on these boats that are due to come in from farmers, I just want to explain to everybody how bad this can be. Those farms will go bankrupt within a matter of weeks because those goods are sitting on those boats that can't land in a port. Those goods are, once they rot, they're not fit for pig feed. So this is a real problem. And you can bankrupt an awful lot of people real quick with a strike at these ports. And that's why it became clear, like I was up to 45 inputs this morning, and I realized this is just scratching the surface and this doesn't really work because the ramifications of the unemployment chains, it's not just the ports, it gets into the farmers. You want a part for your BMW, good luck, because it's sitting on a boat in the middle of the ocean somewhere. They also offload fuel. So they offload and they unload fuel. Part of the problem here, what you heard from the president of the Longshoremen's Union, math matters. And I am in agreement, obviously, that the mechanization is a problem because people pay taxes, not machines. People need a job, not machines. And he's right. However, both sides, I would say a pox on both your houses. With regard to the president of the United States, this should never, ever have happened. There's something called the Taft Hartley agreement, and it should be enforced, and you should settle immediately. Not yesterday, immediately. This has to be done because the ramifications, and I've said before, no one knows what the tipping point could be. This very well may be that tipping point. The union is right with regard to the idea of the taxes, and you're right, Travis, with regard to what you said about paying those property taxes, that goes a long way towards settling any of this problem. However, both sides are talking on issues they don't fully understand. I've been able to calculate how bad this is. There's 45 data points immediately that they don't even want to talk about. And that is the fraud that's created as a direct result of these property taxes. Get rid of those property taxes, and all of a sudden, these people have got money in their pocket. There would be no reason for a strike. That's the point to all of this. And that's what everybody that's watching these videos has to understand what's going on here. This is bad.
Given the circumstances, Mitch, do you disagree with the workers striking?
Under the circumstance? No, and hell no. They're right. They have to have jobs. Human beings have to have jobs. Can you imagine what's going to happen when people go to a grocery store? A, they don't have food on the shelves. B, they don't have jobs. Like you seriously have got to have a screw loose if anybody thinks this is good.
One question before we move on to the ripple effects, how long do you think that they'll have to strike for like massive impacts to be felt by everyone at, say, the grocery store? Talking like 1 day, 1 week, 1 month? How long is this going to take if they continue to strike for it to really be felt by households?
The best way I can explain it, because I've been studying these spreadsheets for several hours, it's an exponential growth problem, just like the infection rate spreadsheet that I've used in the past. But this is worse because the inputs are so much greater. So one day is the equivalent of 3 days. 3 days is the equivalent of 12 days. 12 days is the equivalent of 2 months. So what happens is that everything starts backing up and everything starts falling apart. The food that's in the boats is literally garbage. You can toss it over the edge of the boat. I mean, it's bad. It's all perishable. It's gone. So then you get involved with the insurance companies and then, well, we're not responsible for this and this is an act of God, that type of stuff. Everything just backs up. And that was part of the inputs. When I started getting down to the insurance, I said, oh, this is not good because the 45 inputs could easily turn into 100 within another hour of me putzing with this stuff. So the reality is there's nothing good that can come out of this. This is an exponential growth problem. The union should have access to this. They should have mathematicians on staff saying, here is what we can use to express our situation the way we see it. And both sides can agree that, yes, this is bad for the entirety of the United States economy. However, this is also bad in terms of the bonds and the real estate, because it all comes back to the real estate fraud, but it's bad on a global basis. In other words, all these other countries in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, pick a country, doesn't matter, China, Taiwan, they've got goods coming in that can't get in. They can't offload them. What's the effect on their companies and all the trickle-down effect to all their employees? This very much could be that tipping point. This is complete nonsense. The president of the United States is asleep at the switch. This is unconscionable how bad this is. This has got to stop immediately. You don't have 1 day, you don't have 2 days, and anybody thinks that you do, you're delusional.
Mitch, let's move on and let's show the viewers just the impact of one port. Our port here in Texas, the Houston port. So I'm going to show you guys now the ripple effects by pulling up these stats. This is only for the port of Houston, okay, for 2022 economic impact. You guys see that here. Now take a look at how many jobs are supported only from this port. 1.54 million jobs supported by port activity. Think about that for a second. And I'm not sure how many people are in this port in Houston, maybe, I don't know, 10,000, maybe 15,000, but look at how many people they are responsible for. That's insane. Now look at this, guys. This is the income from the port, $439 billion. That is 18.6% of the state's GDP. So I would say that these people are extremely, extremely important. But look at this next thing here, guys. Now, this is alarming. And I'm not even, and I'll bring up the Fed here in a minute, but the state of Texas pulls in $10.6 billion of state and local taxes. If we divide the 45,000 workers just into the tax that Houston makes, it would allow these people to make $226,000 per year. So I don't think that the state employees are earning that $226,000 per employee per year, but that's the localized impact. The national tax revenue is actually $62 billion. To put this in perspective on how big this port actually is, here's the Houston port right here. This is the Port of Houston Authority, and this is Buffalo Bayou. And look at all of the businesses that are attached to this port. I mean, look at all these boats, you guys, and I'm going to go towards the exit, and I want you guys to really, I mean, look at all these containers here. I mean, this is huge, massive amounts of.
Yeah, those are all oil tanks. Go back, show everybody the oil tanks, and you're going to see.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's just one, Mitch. No, there's more. I'm not even got to the big place yet. I mean, I'm still going, right? I mean, look at this. Look at all these. Look at this. Look at this right here. So you got the terminal here. Look at these containers. Look at this.
Yep.
Look at this. It fills up the entire screen. This is crazy, Mitch. And look at all these boats. I mean, I'm not even at the ocean yet, Mitch. I'm still going, buddy. Look, you see what I'm saying? Look at this. Look at how many containers. This is another terminal right here. I mean, the amount of money coming and look. So now we're at the main terminal. I think this is the main terminal. We didn't even get to the main terminal yet. I mean, I could still keep going. This is just such a huge, let me zoom out a little bit. I mean, look at this. Look at the infrastructure. Think of all these people that are working here. I mean, you guys could probably see, look, it's still going, Mitch, why this is going to impact 1.5 million jobs and how this can cost $5 billion per day. I mean, look at all these boats, Mitch. Look at it. This is another terminal. This is not the same one. This is a new one, right? I mean, this is absolutely bonkers. Now, look at this. Another terminal, massive terminal. Now, let me read this last thing right here, because this is very interesting. This goes into the Taft Hartley Act, and I'm going to read this for the viewers, and then I'm going to go back to you, Mitch. A port strike in 2002 went on for 11 days before the Bush administration invoked the Taft Hartley Act to force the ports to reopen. The act allows the federal government to seek a court injunction against a strike to allow both parties to continue negotiations during an 80-day cooling off period. It took 6 months to recover from the 11 days. Now, the Biden administration essentially said that he is not going to enact that, and that these negotiations of all of these people, they're essentially on their own. And my question for you, Mitch, is, you know, I just showed the viewers that through the Houston port, the federal government made $62 billion. Doesn't the Fed and the president work for the people? Isn't it partially their responsibility to help? And let's start by, let me ask you this. Do you think they should enact that act and force those people back to work?
Immediately. The president of the United States is asleep at the switch. This is a massive problem. And if you think I'm over exaggerating, go and pull up a chart right now, because I just looked. Oil up 4.62%. That's a skyrocket. So clearly people are beginning to wake up and say, this is a problem. But people do not understand on both sides, be it the White House and or the unions, how bad this math is. When Goldman Sachs came out with that $5 billion statement, they're wrong, right? Because this is a problem that has exponential growth attached to it. Let's just say, for the sake of conversation, it was $5 billion a day. The problem, according to the math, is that in day 3, it's now 10. So on day 3, you've got, if they want to use their $5 billion, congratulations, that's $50 billion. Okay, day 10 is now 30. So you've got a huge problem in that this ratchets up real fast. So you're now 150 billion shot down the drain in less than 30 days, using Goldman Sachs' number, which isn't right. It's ridiculously conservative, and I don't think they can back it up. This is an exponential growth problem. Look at all those feeder plants. Look at all those oil tanks. They can't offload any of that oil. They can't unload any of that oil. The whole thing comes to a screeching halt. This is the heartbeat of the U.S. economy. This is a direct attack on the U.S. economy. And if it is not stopped, this is a global problem. And those in the White House need to have an injunction immediately. They need to be forced. Call this off. Tell them you will pay. This will get settled. There is precedent for this. This has happened at the GM plant. The people went back to work while things were getting negotiated. Put this back in the bottle today.
Let me play about a 1-minute video from the president, and let's continue this discussion.
If they keep putting machinery to take our jobs, who's going to pay the income tax? Machines are not. Who's going to pay for the military, the roads? Everything runs by taxes. Take Easy Pass. The first time they come out with Easy Pass, 1 lane, and cars were going through and everybody's sitting in their car and go, what's that all about? I'm going to get one of them. Today, all those union jobs are gone, and it's all Easy Pass. People don't realize it. Everybody's got 3 cars. Everybody got an easy pass on the window. And they go through like it's nothing. And they get billed in the mail. They didn't care about that union worker working in the booth. You go in a store today, it's self-checking. They don't need anybody to check out no more. Someone has to get into Congress and say, whoa, time out. This world is going too fast for us. Machines got to stop. Yes, we're getting smart kids out of MIT and all these places. Yeah, they're all brilliant. But what good is it if you're going to put people out of work?
He brings up some good points on automation. Robots can't pay taxes, but you know, I can't help but think like maybe this is a distraction. I mean, they're arguing. Maybe this is an emotionally charged negotiation when the reality is they're being robbed blind by the state and federal governments. Because my next question to you, Mitch, is do you think that, I mean, if you want to get elected, I mean, literally the governor of Texas can fix this overnight. If they lower the taxes, I don't even know if that's possible, but do you think that Texas should lower the taxes by half in the port, thus giving those workers an extra $110,000 a year? And I'm saying that to the viewers to try to help you guys understand how much they're being taxed. They're being taxed like crazy. Like, why are they not talking about the massive tax bill? Right? So Mitch, I mean, seriously, man, I mean, what should there be lower taxes? Should the state of Texas intervene and do what they can, lower taxes to help offset these expenses?
The fraud is systemic in that at the property level of the taxing entities, it has clearly been proven that they are outside of USPAP, the Texas Property Tax Code, the Texas Constitution, and the US Constitution. We have all the evidence to back that up on the website. What these entities, such as the longshoremen, are fighting, and to your point, no, property taxes need to be eliminated because they in and of themselves are the problem at the tail end of the day. So if you think about it, all the fraud that's built into the system is in fact what the longshoremen in the UAW over the years, as has happened at the GM plant where 5,000 employees are there, they got raises, which is great. Here's the problem. Central Appraisal District took it all away. So did the employees actually benefit? Well, the answer is no, not really. And to that point, so UAW itself, the International Union, the Longshoremen Union, what you should be doing is sending me a letter that simply says, we agree that the property taxes should be eliminated, and be prepared to sign an amicus brief down the road when I need it, because that gets rid of the fraud. That gets rid of massive amounts of expenses that shouldn't be there, and do this in favor of a uniform state's sales tax. All of a sudden, you now have objective analysis, not subjective analysis. And further to that point, a memo came through this morning, which is really interesting, because I asked Mr. Spencer, what is to stop you from increasing the property taxes to infinity in 2025? He's the chief appraiser at Denton Central Appraisal District. Well, the answer is nothing. Lo and behold, this morning, an interesting memo shows up from a school district in Oklahoma and called Ninica. And they lost a lawsuit from a sexual predator to the tune of $7.5 million. Because that school district lost that lawsuit, they increased over and above the increase, the taxes for the members of that school district, for the real estate taxpayers, 12.5%. Well, there's your proof that they believe they have an implicit guarantee. And to that point, the members of that society, that community, should literally file that school district today into involuntary bankruptcy, and then possibly turn around and sue the attorneys and sue the members of the board, joint and severally liable, for making a settlement that violates your own state and federal constitutional rights. The idea that this nonsense gets passed on based on some sort of weird interpretation that there's an implicit guarantee is a violation of both constitutions. So the answer to your question, Travis, is yeah. At the tail end of the day, this whole thing is a fraud, and it's a fraud built on the back of the real estate taxpayers, which is equity stripping mom and pop. And that is why the union, in the case of the longshoremen, they're right.
So let me kind of sum up, what I've learned from you, Mitch, and let me sum it up to the viewers. Essentially what is happening is that, understand what we're saying. These states, these municipalities are taxing us to death. They can there's no one to tell them no. I've been asking for the approval formula, like the school district, which is the bedrock of where the fraud is at, because they use our children against us. And that's an emotionally charged municipality, the richest municipality, which is why it's ground for fraud. But there's no one to tell them no. They can literally tax us to infinity. Where's the math? Where's the formula? And that's what Mitch is saying. And now here's the thing, that what I'm saying, you guys remember the auto workers strike, the writers strike, the UPS strike, all of that was an illusion. It was an illusion. All they're doing right now with this port strike is an illusion of legitimacy. These strikes are only for it's just to keep their jobs. These guys only want to keep their jobs. They need the increase to pay for the inflation. They need the wage increase to pay for the cost of living. The cost of living has exploded as a result of the taxes. And that is what we're trying to explain to you. And when you guys look at the data and you see that the actual tax liability far exceeds the labor liability, how can that be? How is that possible? Let me show you guys now the broader ripple effects to the economy. And let's ask the question, is this the straw or the black swan that is finally going to collapse the global economy? This is an article from yesterday from USA Today. 1 week shutdown could lead to a 6-week recovery. The top 5 ports, New York, New Jersey, Savannah, Georgia, Houston, Norfolk, and Charleston, handled more than 1.5 million 20-foot equivalent units. That's insane, valued at $83 billion in August alone. That is a lot of commerce happening. What's affected by the strike? Imports, with about half of the U.S. ocean imports passing through the East and Gulf Coast ports. A wide range of products are affected, including produce, cars, auto and machinery parts, clothing, pharmaceuticals, wine and spirits, holiday goods like toys, and seafood. Ports handled $38 billion in vehicle imports last year alone. So auto parts are also a key import on the East Coast and Gulf of Mexico, with shipments from Europe more difficult to reroute those from China, logistic experts said. Now, this is another one that's really, really important, because this food is going to spoil. U.S. agricultural imports at risk in port strike. About 14% of all U.S. waterborne agricultural exports by volume would be at risk from a strike. Over a 1-week period, the potential value of those exports is estimated at $318 million. Additionally, 53% of U.S. waterborne agricultural imports by volume are vulnerable to the strike, leading to a potential economic impact of over $1.1 billion per week. That's just for the farmers, you guys. I mean, this is hurting a lot of people. 3/4 of the nation's, again, 3/4 of the nation's banana imports from countries like Guatemala and Ecuador land at ports on the East and Gulf coasts, which essentially means, you guys, they're also at risk. Now, let's go on a couple more things here. The $18 billion a year U.S. beef and pork export market and the $5.8 billion poultry and egg export sector relies on refrigerated containers that cannot sit idle for long. So massive problems with meat as well. About 45% of all waterborne U.S. pork exports and 30% of beef exports were shipped via East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. More than 1/4 of all U.S. egg and egg products exported, and around 70% of all poultry meat exported and shipped from ports along the East and Gulf coasts. The affected ports also handle more than 91% of containerized imports and 69% of containerized exports of U.S. pharmaceutical products. I think I painted as best I could for the viewers, the picture and sort of the ripple effects that can happen not only on a localized basis, but around the world. Mitch, is this strike potentially the black swan that will crash the U.S. economy and or the world economy? And why or why not?
Potentially, as I've said, nobody knows what the tipping point is. Could this be that tipping point if this is not put back in the bottle immediately? Absolutely. This is a global problem. This is not And that's kind of what is so annoying about this, is that people are coming up with these numbers, but they're not based on anything even close to being correct. See, you've got perishable goods, and you can say, okay, fine, here's a container full of perishable goods, and no big deal. It disintegrates and we all move on. The problem is this farmer that produced those perishable goods has a mortgage. He has employees to pay. And that's why the exponential growth of this literally just goes parabolic. And that's why it takes so many methods of spreadsheets in order to figure it out. The Mulholland Obis is one of them. The infection rate spreadsheet, you've got to combine this stuff. It gets fairly technical. But when somebody says, oh, it's just $318 million, no, you're not even close. You're not even on the same planet. There is no hedging that can be done when there's no farmer that's hedged against this event, right? If they lose 2 weeks or a month of product, how are they going to make that up to pay their employees? How are they going to pay their mortgage? That puts them in harm's way of bankruptcy. How many farms, my math is showing, this can affect about 25% of the farms in the United States. Well, that's here. Now, what about on the rest of the globe and stuff that's being imported? This is bad. And therein lies the ultimate problem, that it's all built on a bunch of fraud, having always come back to the real estate taxes here in the United States, and we've exported our problems across the globe. Could this be it? Yeah, it could be.
Unaffordability that we've been going through for 2.5, maybe 3 years. Unaffordability is finally leading to layoffs. Layoffs will lead to people not paying their bills, and taxes included, which will lead to prices of houses plummeting. When prices of houses plummet, it will collapse the system even more. Mitch, can you talk to the viewers about your concerns with 401ks and how 401ks can actually be drastically impacted through a recession or depression?
Yes. Before we go there, though, fuel doing what it's doing this very second, you'd be wise to go fill up your cars today or your trucks, just as a warning. And with regard to the 401ks, we looked at the General Motors plant very heavily with the 5,000 employees in Arlington, and they've got a program, and GM is rather proud of the program from the 401k, et cetera, et cetera. But when you start to dial in as to what entities are being invested in, including BlackRock, and you realize that, yes, BlackRock is out buying houses and they're doing all this other stuff. As I said before, who are the shareholders? It's mom and pop. If, as Travis just said, when the real estate market goes down, it affects everybody, including BlackRock. So those who have 401ks, again, you can't be apathetic to say, oh, I've got a 401k. Even GM says if you don't have 1.2 million at the end of retirement, you're going to have a difficult time. Well, if that 401k cannot deliver, then because you're not paying attention, or you're only getting a 2.7% rate of yield on your combined 401k because it's splattered out over 30 different underlyings, then you've got some work to do and some serious consideration as to whether having that 401k is right for you. Everybody's got to look at their own circumstances. But the reality is you need to be paying attention to this, because if they're in index funds and you're now at the high end of the market, even though we're not that far from a double top, the reality is you have more downside than you do upside.
Mitch, is it fair to say, and I'm going to bring up the Oklahoma school district here in a second, but is it fair to say that the reason, this is so crazy, that the reason for the fact that we haven't collapsed already, it seems like so much is hinged on home values. I say that because of the property taxes. It literally, the entire world economy is hinging on home values in the U.S.
Yes.
On the U.S. And it was rhetorical when I said, should Texas come in and cut half the taxes to save these people? My point in saying that was to tell the viewers how much the taxes really are. The fact of the matter is they can't afford, according to them, because there's so much fraud. You cut the fraud, then they can afford it. That's really all they need to do. Cut the fraud, the CEO bonuses of billions of dollars, problem will be fixed. But the thing is, if they lose that money and that tax revenue, all that they do is they pass that loss of revenue onto the owners of homes or businesses. And so they never, you know what? Let me throw up this article. Okay. So here's an article. Mitch sent me this article this morning. This is from September 19th. Now, this is a school in Oklahoma that's lost $7.5 million. And the reason I'm telling you guys this and we're explaining to you guys this is because this is the reason for the strikes. If it wasn't for this type of fraud and this type of expenses being put on homeowners and workers, they wouldn't need to strike because then they could thrive and afford to live. So this school settled for $7.5 million from a sexual harassment lawsuit from 14 different girls. Okay. So they settled for $7.5 million. And the way that they got the money, guys, is they raised property taxes by 12%. So every homeowner in that district ended up paying for that offense. That's the problem with what's going on in this economy. Mitch, let's get some final words, man. How do we stay hopeful? How do we make change?
And days like this, it's extremely difficult because the math is the math and math matters. It bothers me that the union doesn't understand how deep this is, or if they do, they're not stating it. The White House, as I said, is asleep at the switch. And this is a big problem that has got to be put away today. So it's difficult. In terms of staying positive, people have to get busy. There's 143 million single-family homeowners in the United States. Everybody needs to understand what's going on. And together, there is power in numbers. The real estate tax system is the fraud. The fraud has got to go away. The fraud was created by being subjective. Houses have doubled in value in the last 5 years with no math to back it up. Zero. They are outside the confines of USPAP. It has been made up. It is purely subjective. When you understand that, then you can start saying, okay, wait a minute, who's really responsible? Well, it's the taxing entities, right? The chief appraisers are controlled by the taxing entities. Therefore, it's time to start filing suit against the taxing entities themselves, as you can see in that school district. That one's an easy target. Today, that school district should be filed into involuntary bankruptcy. End of story. So when you understand this, you have to get busy. You can't sit still. You've got to get the comparisons. The time for sitting still and thinking somebody else is going to do this for you is long over. You've got to get involved.
How do they get involved and get busy, Mitch?
Well, one of the ways on an individual level is take your course, which is for free, to understand how to handle the comparisons. And that is what has to be done on an individual level. On a global basis, a little bit larger, in your neighborhood, find people that are suffering from the same issue, join forces with them. Then you can go ahead and have a lawsuit where it's relatively inexpensive for you to be able to carry it. And then you can do that. And then if you have the resources, take the lawsuits on the constitutional side in your states, because we've set this path up for you. All of our evidence is there. We're giving it to the attorneys and the accountants. It's free. It'll save you tens of thousands of dollars if you decide to pull the trigger and go ahead and start filing the lawsuits. We've done the research for you. It's all there. So there's things that can be done. These CADs can be broken. It just has to be acted upon. That's it.
Well said, sir. And I'm just going to end by saying this, like what Mitch was saying, you may want to go get some gasoline right now and stock up on some beans and rice or food or whatever. Now, I'll tell you right now, I got my solar panels, I got my antibiotics, I got my MREs, I got my rice, I got my beans. I am ready to go. I am ready to go through this pain together, which is really what we need. And that's why the fall of Rome. They just never wanted to go through the pain. So they all went through a total collapse together. And I don't want the U.S. to fall like Rome, but I don't know how else to look at it, Mitch. I mean, I'm pretty bothered by everything that's going on, but you know what? We're going to keep leading. We're going to keep trying to do as much as possible for free. We want to be the guys that actually show you we don't need to let money rule our lives. That's all, right? And honestly, Mitch, I would say that's all the politicians need to do. Just stop taking the money over your principles, over your ethics, over your morals. My God. So to the viewers, you don't have to be like these people. You, each and every one of you can make a difference. Look at what me and Mitch are just two people. We don't have a news station. We don't have editors and people finding these stories. It's just two of us. You guys can make a bigger impact than Mitch and I. All it takes is the awareness and the action. You guys, let's grow together. Everything's in the description. All of the links, everyone. I get emails still, Mitch. Where's the course, Travis? Where's the course, you guys? It's in the link in the description. Just literally hit the description in the video. This thing pops out and there's links in there. Bunch of links. Pick whatever one you want. Now, if you're out there just living your life, we wish you luck and we hope you win.
Come into America and build fully automated terminals and get rid of American jobs. Good paying jobs that support families with medical, pensions, annuities, and pay taxes. They want to get rid of them. Where's the president of the United States? He's not fighting for us. He told in LA, he told the union, hurry up and get a contract. That's the mentality they have. They don't even know what the hell they're doing today. Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to save everybody's job when it comes to the ILA and to all the unions around the world, because we're going to fight it with that alliance. I'll shut them down throughout the world to prove that we can beat them.